our experts. Welcome to the stage, Elizabeth and Cheryl. There we are. Cheryl, welcome to the Core Deep Dive. Can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks so much, Josh. Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Feldman, and I am a Senior Director of Product Management at Salesforce. And I still cover user access, but what some folks may not know is that I've expanded my role to also cover another important area, and that is essentially the future of setup. And we'll be talking about both today. So thank you so much for having me. Really, really excited for this session.
Awesome. And Elizabeth, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about your role here.
Absolutely, Josh. Thank you. I'm currently the product owner for the Agentforce for Setup Experience team. So what that means is my team owns a lot of the UI patterns and interaction patterns that you'll see on the Agentforce for Setup side. And if you have any feedback or questions on anything we present in that area, I'd always love to hear it.
Sounds excellent. Well, now let's get rolling. Elizabeth, I think you have some amazing things to show us when it comes to an agentic experience in setup. I say we wait no more and jump into your demo.
Fantastic. Let's jump into it. So we're starting off on Setup Home, and this is the new agentic Setup Home. We have some old familiar faces. We have the navigation bar on the left-hand side. We have our personalized suggestions front and center. If we scroll down on the page, we can see we can still access those recently accessed items. But we have some new things as well. So the first thing you'll notice is that the page is now supporting SLDS2. So if you have Agentforce for Setup, we'll extend respect for your SLDS2 settings to setup. You can collapse the navigation bar on the left-hand side, something that many of you have asked for some time. And the biggest change right here, front and center on the screen, is this new utterance box. And this is where you're going to request or ask questions about the tasks that you need to complete in setup. Below here, you can see some recommended utterances that gives you a sense of the types of things that you'll be able to do. So let's jump into an example. As our first example, let's say that one of our users has come to us and they said they don't have access to something that they need to be able to do their job. So rather than having to dig through the setup tree, having to go into their user record and their permission sets that are assigned to them, I can just ask the agent directly, what level of access does this user have on the object in question? And the agent is going to go and take a look, and it comes back with this nice summary showing me that this user has read-only access for the opportunity object. Now, rather than going and trying to figure out what permission set I might want to assign to him, I can just ask the agent again. And the agent comes back and it says, here are the permission sets that grant access to the opportunity object. I can see the one that gives read, create, edit, and delete access. And I can just ask the agent in simple natural language to assign that permission set to this user. Now, the agent is going to ask for a confirmation. It's never going to complete a change without asking them for that confirmation. This looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And just like that, we've now updated the user access for this particular user for the opportunity object. Okay, that was easy. Let's take another example. Let's say that I need to create some new fields. Now, I want to create fields on the account object to track industry, number of employees, and support level. I haven't actually gone to look at the account object to see what fields are there already. Never fear, the agent is going to help us with that. So the agent is going and looking at the current data model, and it's going to come back with a recommendation. And we can see it comes back and it says, it looks like there are already fields for industry and employees that exist on the account object. There isn't one for support level. And so it's recommending that it adds that. And it's a pick list, just as like we would expect. It's asking for confirmation, just as we saw for the previous example. And just like that, we have our new field created. And you can see how much quicker this might be than having to go through those steps one by one in the object manager. And the last example I'm going to show you is when we don't have an agent action available. So unfortunately, we weren't able to build out agent actions for every single thing you would do in setup. And this is going to give you an example of how the agent is going to handle that. In this case, let's say that we want to learn about setting up Agentforce for our sales users. Now, there is some documentation available, and so the agent is coming back with some guidance from that documentation, and then it's giving me the link to the appropriate page. So I can go ahead and open that up. And if I have any more questions, I still have my agent on the lower right-hand side, and I could go ahead and chat. But otherwise, I have all the steps I need here to complete the task. Now, those are just 3 quick examples, but that wraps up our demo.
Excellent. That is absolutely amazing stuff. Now, I'm being told by my crack tech team that we had some audio issues at the beginning of the show. So I want to go back to a few key points there. First of all, our ever-loving forward-looking statement: please make all your purchasing decisions based on current features and not any forward-looking statements we might make on this broadcast. I also want to give a shout out to our product managers, Larry Tung and Lauren Kabowski, who are in the chat right now with you to help take your questions while we're going through some slides and talking about some of these products. So we want to hear from you. Please go ahead and ask them your questions, and then we will take your questions and give you some answers in the second half of this broadcast. Now, Elizabeth, I think you've got some slides you want to talk towards.
Let's go through it. So I wanted to start off by giving a quick recap of what we're releasing in pilot at Dreamforce. We saw 3 examples in the demo here of the items on this slide. This slide is giving some additional examples. I just want to call out, this isn't everything the agent will be able to do, but it gives you kind of a sense of the breadth and depth of some of the things that will be in scope. Go to the next slide. Now, one of the first questions we always get is, how can I trust it? I just want to call out quickly, these are kind of 6 reasons that we think this will be trustworthy for you. The first is that it's going to always respect user permissions. You wouldn't be able to do things with the agent that you couldn't do otherwise. You'll get those confirmations before changes, like we saw in the demo. All the changes that are made agentically will be tracked in the setup audit trail, and it will be called out that they were made by the agent. It will not consume Agentforce credits. So this is a big question that comes up from a lot of customers. This isn't going to burn down your resources there. Just like any other configuration work, you typically want to be doing things, especially bigger changes in a sandbox. These changes with the agent can be done in a sandbox as well. And then the last thing, and I think this is one of the most important things, the agent is powered by the Atlas reasoning engine. So you're not going to be able to ask it questions, like what's a good restaurant in San Francisco, because that's outside of the scope of the guardrails that the agent has. Now let's talk about roadmap. So what we saw in the demo will be available in pilot at Dreamforce. If you're interested in signing up for the pilot, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you. And then following that pilot, we're aiming for a beta around the December timeframe and a GA around the timeframe of TDX. Now, these are some of the examples of the types of actions that will be available in beta and beyond. We're going to expand on the actions we saw in the previous slide and those action categories and build out more robustness there, and then expand into the categories that you see on this slide as well. And that wraps up everything I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It really is amazing stuff. And I know we're going to get some really awesome questions about that. Now, Cheryl, I think we're moving over to your portion. And this first feature that we're talking about, I understand it's a little popular.
Yes. So something many of you have asked, I think some of you have asked and stood up at True to the Core. Why is user the only standard object without field history tracking? Well, I'm really excited to tell you that when your orgs turn on to Winter 26, this will be an open beta, which means you can self-enable, and we will have field history tracking on user, which I know so many of, there's almost 40,000 points on this idea. And so just something to know is you will see once you turn this on in user management settings, you only have to do that once while we're in beta, and then you'll be able to see the related list on the user access summary. And so for user access policies, and for some reason that image isn't loading, but this is just a quick refresher. We introduced user access policies about a year ago. And so what user access policies allow you to do, just a quick recap, is they allow you based on criteria that is attribute based or entitlement based to automatically assign access. And that access can be permission sets, permission set groups, public groups, queues, as well as licenses. And you can grant or revoke, or you can mass move around access. But something I've been asked consistently is, when are we getting enhancements to user access policies? So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be introducing over the next few releases for user access policies. And so one thing that we hear a lot is that user access policies is good for a net new user setup, but it's not great when it comes to job role changes. So what we're looking at introducing is what I'm calling a start from zero action, where you could have an action in any one of the policies that you choose, that when essentially there's a job role change or this policy runs and a user is already existing, it will clear out the access they had previously and then only add the entitlements that are in that policy. And then the next is around enhancements to actions and criteria. You've been asking us for territory assignments, as well as handling or statements, as well as we know the experience does not work well for our customers using external users. We know that the role selection somewhat does not load. If you have a lot of roles, which we know folks who are managing a lot of external users do, that's something we're going to be looking at addressing. And something I don't have on this slide is also looking at how we handle more than one policy at one time. Also, as Elizabeth covered with Agentforce for setup, we're also going to look at helping you create policies, when to use policies, and things like that. So those will be coming in the future. And then just generally, just a larger roadmap for user access. So things you'll see coming in the next 2 releases: one, clone user; another big idea, exchange request; troubleshooting a user's access, both permissions and record access. And I want everybody in the chat to shout out Larry, because he's been working really hard on a lot of our troubleshooting functionality, as well as comparing of access, comparing of users, comparing of profiles, comparing of permission sets, understanding what's changed about a user's access over time, summarization of the setup audit trail, and also the user access policies enhancements I mentioned. So that's what you can expect to see over the next couple of releases. Then further out than 2 releases is I still want to solve our super permission problem, which is you have to give customized app for a small job to be done, or modify all data. My team is going to be running a POC on something later this year to see if we can solve that, but I'll have more updates as we get closer to TDX next year. And then also conditional field level security, and then also expansion of restriction rules. And then I do, in true to the core fashion, I wanted to call out a couple things that we're just not doing right now. So Josh, if you want to go to the next slide. And I feel like it's really good to be transparent. I have updated some of these ideas. I just won't be able to handle delete users. We couldn't get a full alignment internally on that, but it's something I know at some point we probably likely need to do. It just won't be coming in the next few releases. Dynamic values on sharing rules. And then enforcement of the end of life of permissions on profiles. I don't know when I'm going to get back to that, but everything we're doing is very much permission set and permission set group led. We are going to start looking at enhancements, but I don't know if we're able to get back to officially enforcing the end of life. But I am going to keep encouraging you to operate in a permission set led security model. And that's essentially what I wanted to cover today from a user access standpoint. And I'm really excited to hear all of your questions, either when it comes to setup or to user access.
All right. And so now we get to everybody's favorite part of the show. We are going to start taking your questions. Now, Cheryl, one right off the top, and normally on these kind of shows, we don't talk like pricing and licensing and stuff like that. But I think you've got some good news for us here, right?
Yep, we can, yes.
So how much is this going to cost?
So as long as you have an Agentforce license, we will not consume your credits, so it'll be available for you to use.
Awesome. Now, Elizabeth, when it comes to many of our offerings with Agentforce and AI, users have to do things like select a specific model, whether they want to use, ChatGPT 4 or anything like that. Is that part of the setup for Agentforce for setup?
No. If you have Agentforce available in your org, and that can be coming with Foundation, so you don't necessarily have to be paying for anything for that. Once you have Agentforce available in the beta, we will have an enablement toggle. So as of the pilot, it's going to be enabled on a one-by-one basis for each customer, but in beta, you'll be able to flip a switch, and that will be the only setup required.
Excellent. Now we've got a question from Patrick McNeil. Could user access policies leverage SAML assert icons like member of to trigger updates?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Could user access policies leverage SAML assert icons like member of to trigger updates?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I would love if you could tag me and wherever you posted that question. I would love to look into this and get back to you.
Okay, awesome. We also have a question from Ray Rojas. Will there be any history tracking on what user permissions, permission sets, PSG, public groups on what's changed on a user?
So for field history tracking on user, it's just the fields. That's what the framework does. We're using the standard framework of field history tracking. It tracks the fields. Now, I do know that there is another large idea out there to be able to do all the access history changes, which is what you're really talking about there.
Gotcha.
A lot of that information exists within Setup Audit Trail. And so we're looking at ways that we can start bringing this forward from a user perspective, or a specific object, or, summarizing things. And that's what I really mean by summarizing the Setup Audit Trail. It's helping you piece together without you having to download the audit trail of exactly what happened to a user, or what changes were made to a permission set, or what changes were made regarding a specific object. So that's something that we will be handling. It just won't be coming through field history tracking, but we know it's another important problem that we need to solve.
Excellent. Now, Elizabeth, we were seeing that demonstration. This is a question from Sean Lowe, and you are creating the fields dynamically using the agent. How does it respect FLS?
I can answer that if you'd like.
Okay.
So from when we're generating fields, what this does is this generates the field, and then you can set field level security. It will actually ask you if you want to do that, and it will allow you to set field level security. What you can do is, as you saw in the example, is then find permission sets that are granting access to the object, or create a new permission set. So that's how it will work between essentially what we call the data model and the access control. And I hope that answers the question that they had on field level security.
We have a question from Maria, and I'll apologize, Maria, if I'm mispronouncing your last name, Maria Krylova. Is there anything planned to do with integration users? 5 licenses sometimes seems like not enough, and some orgs have plenty of them. Do you have any solutions to resolve this?
To evolve what? Okay.
Anything to do with integration users and the fact that there's only 5 licenses?
Integration user. I don't right now, but I would love to connect you to the product managers that manage the integration user. So if you can tag me, I will make sure we connect you with Jeremy and Chris.
Sounds great. Same person, Maria, also asking, is there API integrations for what we're seeing here today?
As far as for Agentforce for setup or user access?
I think for either one, yes.
Okay. So For Agentforce for setup, there isn't necessarily, so we're starting to develop. So if you've seen, you can watch the Future of User Management presentation that we've done both at TDX and Dreamforce. And another one of our colleagues, Ben Sklar, who develops a lot of our APIs, talks about the APIs that he's developing. Right now, these are internal only, but we do want to make some of these available. Then, but we're also using some of the existing APIs to do things that we're doing. User access policies, as far as if you're talking about some of the user access policies is available in the API. If you experience any issues there, let me know. But if there's something specific in the API that you're looking for that you haven't seen or want to know about, if you have a more specific question, if you want to tag me and Elizabeth, we can always loop Ben in.
Got it. I have a question from Terry Cole. With a least privileged goal starting from minimal profile, I have a lot of group with list views and reports. Any way to make this easier with perm sets or access policy? There are still a few things that we have to pull into the minimal permission that are seeming kind of silly.
I don't think we have anything right now,
Okay.
but I would love to understand the use case a bit more, because that may be something in the POC that I mentioned that we're going to be taking later this year that we could potentially solve for. And so I would love to hear more about that use case. So Terry, if you want to tag me, would love to hear more about your use case.
Awesome. We have a question from our own Leanne Reimel. A question for Cheryl. Do we know what the delete user will look in terms of keeping an audit trail, et cetera, for the deleted user?
So I'm not actually planning on handling deleted users at all right now. So we're not planning. So it's not something that's planned right now. But if these are some of the considerations, and this is why I say it's a very large effort. Think about like when a user owns records, or either in your setup audit trail or in your history somewhere. What do we do about that? Those are questions we need to answer, and we don't have answers for them. That's one of the reasons why I say it's a very, very large effort. And so it's something that we're just not handling right now. But it is, if we were to handle that, that is something we absolutely need to think about.
Yeah. Question for Elizabeth. You mentioned audit trails, but we didn't really actually get to see them. What are some of the information, what are some of the data points that admins will be able to track in audit trails?
And Cheryl is the owner of that, so I'm going to let her speak to it.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So with Setup Audit Trail, so in Setup Audit Trail today, I'm trying to remember the columns essentially, but you have essentially who made the change, what the change specifically was, when it was, and then what area of the platform it was in. And then if something happened through login as, it's called a delegate user. What we've done for customers who are using agents is you'll see another column there, and it will tell you which agent helped make this change through which user. So for example, if I'm using Agentforce for setup, and I, let's say create an object and create some fields, those will be tracked in the audit trails as if I created them, but it will say it's through the Agentforce for setup agent in another column that's essentially in the same row. And so that's essentially how that will look. We can probably share a screenshot. I'm happy to do that. Post this, I can grab a screenshot and just show everybody what it's going to look like. And of course, we would love everybody's feedback if there's something else that you feel like is missing that we need to track. But I do also own that feature.
Awesome. I've got a question from Wendy Kellard Comarack. I'm trying here, Wendy. My Midwestern tongue sometimes does not get it right. Will clone user be able to include permission sets, team defaults, special licenses such as CPQ? One clone, does that do the complete setup?
Yes, that's a great question. So you're going to be able to clone both the user detail, which is the user fields, as well as you'll be able to clone the assignments. So that's assignments of permission sets, permission set groups, public groups, queues. We're also going to be handling, I believe we are handling licensing, but let me come back to and confirm that. But I know the other ones we are definitely handling because I've tested those. I'm pretty sure I had in the requirements for licensing, but let me actually come back to you on that one.
Excellent. A question from Jean-Marc Svaz. Can we stop introducing the need for a permission set to give a user access to some external credentials and rather introduce an external credential access section in the permission set?
So that's a great suggestion. I would love to get that over to my colleagues in identity
Okay.
who own those external credentials. I would love to get them to take a look at that. So if you want to tag me, I will tag our colleagues in identity.
Awesome. A question from Jeffrey Chung. When testing agents and prompts today within the builders, we're able to see how an agent goes about performing its steps. Will there be the same kind of outline, the same kind of debugging for Agentforce for setup?
So I think they're talking about when you actually are in the builder, you can actually
Planner
see the agent and see
Yeah.
the topic actually working. So technically, yes, for the pilot, you'll be able to see that. However, we are going to move to the beta to a more file-based agent, or what we're calling essentially so an agent that will automatically turn on rather that will be available for you. I think we have to see how that works, but I would love to understand, like, is that something you like? What do you like about it? What, like, when you're seeing that experience that you saw that Elizabeth demoed, what would you want there that, is in the builder that we're not showing you today? I think would be interesting for us to know.
Yeah, I can speak from a little bit of experience there because sometimes with the Atlas reasoning engine, it's like it's asking which one of the actions it wants to show, and it's like sometimes if you can track its reasoning there, it gets a little bit easier to like, oh, that's why you misbehaved, right? You use that flow action instead of that flow action kind of thing. But yeah, let's see here. Oh, from Squire Kirshner himself. How can we get involved with the roadmap, ambassador programs, user research, volunteerism? Question mark.
Well, I think if there's something that you feel like is missing from our roadmap or something that like I wish this was on our road, please tell us. Please absolutely tell us. I can't guarantee everything will be a yes, but I want to hear from you. To me, that's the most important point of true to the core is we want to hear from you, and we want people to give us feedback. To me, all feedback is a gift, and so please give us the gifts of your feedback because we will absolutely take them back to the teams, whether it's for Agentforce for setup or for user access. I can't guarantee everything will make it on the roadmap, but I do want to hear from all of you. So please, this is just an open invitation. Give us feedback.
Nice.
And I think that's a great time to call out. Laurent just shared in the chat a sign-up form for the pilot. Being engaged in the pilot is the perfect way to give us feedback. So if you want to add your email and name to that sign-up form, we can reach out to you and get you signed up.
Excellent. Question from Mike Wheeler. Will the next features of user setup be agent for setup driven? So are we using agents to create agents in the near future? I think is the question.
Are we using agents to create agents is what I heard the question.
Yeah.
So that is, I can't necessarily speak on behalf of the team that owns agents, but I do know that that's something that they're looking at. But we would love to connect you to that team. So if you want to give like feedback on what you might want there, so feel free to tag me and I will make sure we connect you with the right PMs there.
I have a feeling that the Trailblazer community group is going to be hopping after this Q&A. I've got another question from Ray Rojas. Are there any future plans for Salesforce user access management integration with other user management apps such as MS Azure, Okta, etc., so we can trigger changes from either app, looking for flexibility between Salesforce and other SCIMs? So is there event awareness of user additions to Active Directory groups or Salesforce user changes?
So we do have some, I'm not an identity expert, but I do present with them quite a bit. And we do have some identity access management solutions that do work with those types of tools. So we can share those links of those. And if you have feedback, if there's something that we're not doing on that side, I would love to tag the identity PM so they can take a look at it. But I do think some of the gaps that we have in the solution, user access policies works really well for. So we kind of see you have your identity access management tools and then user access policies on the Salesforce side. But we would love to hear use cases, and I would absolutely love to get this feedback over to the identity team.
Awesome. Question from Mark Brusso. Does or will Agentforce help us examine record type assignments? Which profiles and permission sets have been assigned to like a specific record type?
Your ears must be ringing because not yet. However, that's coming. We actually wrote the requirements doc for that the other day. So that's coming. That will be post-pilot. But yes, we absolutely need to handle record type assignments, default record types. And I'm also looking, at the Agentforce for setup experience to finally solve some of these really horrible experiences, such as record type assignment, tab assignment, where you basically see it at the time of creation and then you can never see it again. And so I've got a whole list of those experiences that we absolutely need to improve. And I feel like Agentforce for setup is the perfect way to do this.
Yeah. And this, I don't know if this is part question or just part segue into what you just said, but we were noticing some of the comments on LinkedIn, and it's like setup gets, I always joke, we don't remove things from setup, right? Like every year setup just gets longer and it gets more complicated. Like Agentforce for setup seems like a really good solution for that, to make it easier to navigate. And I think the comment on LinkedIn was like, how can I keep up with these changes? And I think what you're saying is Agentforce for setup will make that a lot more transparent and easier to use.
Yes, that's and I'll also let Elizabeth answer from her perspective as well. But from my perspective, absolutely, our goal is, and I'll just tell you like what our charter is. I'll be very transparent. Is we want to bring setup to you.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of you, we're flipping the narrative, right? So right now you need to do something. You have to go search and help and training, figure out what it is you want to do. Then you have to go find the right place and set up. This takes a lot of time. This is why we have both the help and the navigation to navigate you places, as well as all of the actions that we're delivering to help you get some of the most common jobs to be done. So instead of you hunting and pecking through all the different setup nodes, our goal is to either present something to you or navigate you to the right place based on what you're trying to do.
Nice. Elizabeth, any follow-up thoughts?
Yeah, I think a couple of the things that I would add is in the initial phase, we're really focusing on the most requested and the most used actions. So we're looking at our navigation data, what pages are users going to the most, and then also all of our true to the core data. What is everyone asking for? Mm-hmm. That's what we're focusing on first. But over the longer term, we do hope to start to make it less deterministic and open up a longer tail of some of those kind of harder to find, maybe less frequently used things. And I think that will be really helpful. I think some of those things are the most difficult because you only have to do it once in 5 years. And so you don't know where it is. And so we'll be working to open that up as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now,
if I could share one more quick thing is to what Elizabeth said. Also we're very data driven, and that data is both based on research. Some of you may have spoken with our researchers. We've gotten a lot of feedback from admins and developers and architects on what we're doing, as well as also we have usage of the setup nodes, and we've realized 65% of the clicks and setup happen in 40 pages, and so that's where we're really focused on in the initial release, and then we're going to continue, as Elizabeth said, through what we call the long tail.
Wonderful. Okay, I've got a question from my old friend Katie Villanueva. When creating fields and objects, you're prompted to apply visibility to profiles. Will there be a time when that would be switched out to access your permission sets? It adds an extra step to skip the profile section, then go back to your permissions and remember to add the fields created.
Well, I have great news for the person who asked that. They can just go in user management settings and turn that on. That is available now. So you can, there's a setting, I believe, if I remember, I'm going to try to remember verbatim what the setting is called. It's set field level security during field creation on permission sets, something like that. You'll see it's about 3/4 of the way down the page in user management settings. Maybe Larry can post what the actual setting name is there, but you can turn that on. And then when you create fields, it will show you permission sets that are granting some level of access to the object you're creating fields on, or you can toggle off and see all permission sets in your org.
Wonderful. We have another question from Maria Krylova. She says she's inspired by Agentforce and Setup presented by Elizabeth. Shout out to you, Elizabeth. And is there any solution coming to see the integration details, say, based on field X? Is there a connected app or external service that is populating that field or using it at Apex?
That's a good question. Cheryl, I don't know if that's going to be on the near-term roadmap.
That's something I don't think we've heard that feedback before, but I would love to get that over to Gonzalo, who works with us on everything data model. So if you want to tag us in that, we will get that feedback over. I don't think we've actually thought about that, so it's not there now. But we're one of the reasons I'm here is we're looking for feedback. What are we missing? This is clearly a job to be done, and so we're looking at everything. We have a giant list of jobs to be done that we want to tackle. Maybe that's something we need to add.
Awesome. Speaking of things to add from Jeffrey W1, is removal of FLS and profiles still planned?
No. And so this is what I mentioned before. We're not in, excuse me, I'm just getting over being sick. We're not enforcing the end of life of permissions on profiles. However,
Okay.
we still advocate that you operate in a permission set led security model. So am I going to force you to do it? Not right now. At some point, we will probably get back to this, but a lot of the enhancements we're doing are for permission sets and permission set groups, not necessarily profiles.
Got it. Also from Maria Krylova, when do you think we're going to see this in orgs themselves, in winter 26?
Was that for Agentforce for setup?
I believe so.
Yep. So this will be, you have to be in our pilot, but yes, it will be there for Dreamforce. And so, but you have to be in our pilot. And then we hoped not long time after that, but hoping to do a quick move to beta. So as soon as we get closer to Dreamforce, we'll be able to share some more definitive timelines.
Awesome. This is a question from Night Howler, who I feel like might be also a gamer tag. Will this setup agent, the Agentforce for setup, be able to compare differences between two different flow versions?
That's actually a request that we've heard, and I believe we do have that in the jobs to be done that we are tracking, but I will make sure that gets over to Vidya. Vidya is the PM that works with us on the flow side. Not yet, I don't believe, but that is something that I believe that we want to bring. But this is something that we've heard before from other customers.
Got it.
I just want to add really quickly, anything like that you have, strong feedback, something you want to see, the form link that was shared is a great place to share that as well. We're trying to take notes as rapidly as we can, but it just helps us get that data into our tracking.
I love it. We have a question from Sammy Young. Since we don't have event monitoring and the field currently isn't currently in our 20 field history tracking allocation, are there any alternate methods? For example, using audit trail, set up audit logs, or a flow Apex trigger to log and capture future changes for that field without enabling Shield. Also, is there a way to backtrack and see who made past changes to this field before tracking was enabled, or is that information unrecoverable?
So there was no way that we're from like a field history tracking end user. There was no field history tracking at all. So once you enable it, that's when it starts tracking. And I believe that's true for anything with field history tracking. And I believe that's actually called out in the help and training. I actually don't own that feature. We're essentially using that feature on user now. To answer your other questions, I actually don't know the answer to the event monitoring question. If we can point over to the teams that own event monitoring and field history tracking to get you an answer there. I don't know of another way. But if something is, so we don't necessarily, we track configuration changes to fields in setup audit trail, not data changes. And that's the difference between really field history tracking and setup audit trail. So my guess is this would not be in setup audit trail. But I think I can tag our colleagues who own the field history tracking and event monitoring to answer your question, because I'm honestly not sure of another way besides that.
Got it. Another question from Ray Rojas. Will anything with setup ever be brought to a mobile app again? The good old Salesforce A app to help with just user admin tasks, just to make it faster or easier?
I feel like this group of people is essentially like in my brain sometimes. So the answer is that's where I want to go. I don't have like, yes, it will come at this point, but I know many of you ask about Salesforce A all of the time. But actually, something that I've been talking about with one of our architects is how could we eventually make Agentforce for Setup available on mobile to do some things. And so we would love your feedback on what you would want to do specifically on mobile. Are there specific things that you'd want to do? So there isn't like, yes, it's going to happen right now, but it is something that we are thinking about. And I know we need to eventually find a replacement for Salesforce. I know that's been gone for a while, but I feel like I don't go a month without somebody asking me about it. And I poke my colleagues in mobile and I'm like, somebody's asking about this again. So I think this may be our path forward to do that again.
Got it. It was their little buddy companion app. They had a little buddy companion app. They want that back. I understand. This is a suggestion from Rachel Morton. A who else option would be great. If I make this change, who else will have their access impacted?
So that's a great point, and that's where we want to go. This is what Larry and I have been talking about. Another, like everybody shows some love to Larry, but that's what Larry and I have been talking about, as well as with Laurent. Essentially, like how do we help you better understand the impact of your changes, especially from a security standpoint? But this is across the board for Agentforce for Setup. We want to help you make better decisions about the configuration. This is something we talk about as a program all the time. We won't be there for day one, but this is where we want to go. And so helping you generate a sharing model based on your requirements instead of you having to guess what type of org-wide default and sharing rules you need, or understanding when you add somebody to a public group, what are they getting access to? Or understanding when you make change to a permission set, how many users are actually going to be impacted by that change because they're either directly assigned or indirectly assigned. So those are some things that we want to do. Like I said, it won't be there for day one, but that's where we want to go.
Got it. A question from Andre Kluxman. Sorry if this was covered, but will Agentforce be aware of the audit trail? Will it be auto-grounded in it so that you can ask the agent about what's been changing today?
So that's coming. That's actually our next set of jobs to be done.
Cool.
That Elizabeth showed in the roadmap. So Andre, when you, after this, the recording will be available. You can see the roadmap that Elizabeth shared. But that is something that we're actually starting to work on. So it won't be there for pilot, but we're looking at for beta/GA timeframe. So to actually do a couple of things. One is to ask questions about the audit trail. Another one is we have all this information on what has happened to a user to help you ask questions like, what are all the changes that impacted this user? To help you answer the question, a user was able to do something on Thursday and now it's Tuesday and they can no longer do it. What happened? And so all that information exists within the audit trail, but instead of manually you going through a CSV, us using an LLM to do this, I think will make this really great, as well as being able to summarize the setup audit trail. And I would love to hear from you, Andres, if there's specific use cases or things you would like to have. I would love to walk you through what we're thinking and what our product vision is there. So feel free to ping me.
Okay, I feel like this is probably one you get a lot. Patrick McNeil is asking, what's the roadmap for permission sets to have 100% parity with profiles, say for assigning IP restrictions?
So I don't know if there will ever be a day where permission sets and permission set groups will be at parity with profiles.
Fine.
This is how I think about things. Profiles handle your one-to-one, and your permission sets and permission set groups handle your many-to-many.
Gotcha.
IP ranges from talking to my colleagues in security and identity, they very much think is a one-to-one setting. Now, I think, and so I know that there's a number of requests for this. So I'll ask the identity folks if they've thought about this. I would happily support that and support them if they want to move that. But there's certain things I think will always stay at the profile level. And that's things like defaults. Like if you put defaults on permission sets, you can have many permission sets and many permission set groups assigned. Which one is then your default? And so essentially we're rebuilding what we have in profile there. That gives you your one-to-one. So I don't think there'll be a day where essentially I think profiles will always serve a purpose, and it's that one-to-one use case.
Got it. Question from Samantha Bird. Will Agentforce for Setup be able to warn me if there are permission sets or PSGs that are similar or duplicated? My org has many permission sets that are ERP ads, as well as custom sets that were created prior to ERP creation. It's a tangled mess. Something like a duplicate warning similar to what is available for accounts, contacts, etc. would be great.
The answer is yes. And so we won't have every single one of those use cases day one, but we will help you to discover what we consider like similar permission sets. And so what we want to get to is exactly what you're explaining there, is essentially have some more grounding and be able to tell you, hey, based on this overall job to be done, or this overall description of what you want in a permission set, you have this permission set that gets you 50% of the way there, this permission set that gets you 70% of the way there, this other permission set that gets you 90% of the way there, and help you determine if you actually need all three or if you should kind of bring some of these together. That's a longer term vision, but that's where we want to go. It's a good call out. It's something we need to handle. And I know that it's very hard to tell this today, very hard. And so, and I know that's why a lot of you have a proliferation of permission sets.
Got it. Another question from Mark Brusso. We are about to start a large tech debt user access project. Any plans on designing Agentforce to help us clean up existing messy profiles, permission sets, FLS sharing, role hierarchy, groups, restriction rules, etc.?
The answer is yes. I don't know exactly when this is coming, but I actually started a document on this last week called Clean Up My Org. And these are some of the use cases that I've been thinking about. And Mark, please ping me. I would love to get your feedback, and anybody else who's interested in giving feedback on this. We would love to hear what your use cases are and what you're looking to clean up. I don't know exactly, and we'll probably bring these things in phases. It won't be like here's all the tools to automatically clean up everything. But I think there's certain use cases we can handle sooner rather than later. So would love to know, for those of you who are in similar to Mark's situation with a lot of tech debt, how can we help you? And I think those are things that we want to know, because we want to add those to our jobs to be done in our roadmap.
Awesome. I'll give you a moment. A question from Chris Feldhacker. I don't like managing 10,000 users. I don't know. that seems reasonable. I'd much rather manage a few 100 personas instead. Any plans to allow making permission changes to logical groups of users collectively?
That's a great idea. That's a great idea. And I think Chris and I have actually spoken about this potentially in the past. It sounds familiar, and I know I've spoken to Chris a couple of times. I don't have any immediate plan to do something, but keep pushing on me, keep pinging me about this, because it's something I do think we should have as a platform. I just don't necessarily have an exact path forward right this minute, but I do think these are some things that we probably need to get to.
Got it. Let's see here. A question from Carol. Oh, here we go. A question from Wendy Mikawasi. I am really sorry, Wendy. I'm sure I'm butchering that. My apologies. Permission sets, permission groups, roles, and profiles. How would you unpack these for somebody who's not in the Salesforce space? Oh, I, as an advocate, love that question. Like, what is your welcome to our profile permission sets, setup to a newbie?
Yep. So so essentially all of these different features together control a user's access or your org's access that you're granting to your users.
Mhm.
And so the way I explain this and the way I think about this is so your profile contains your base level of access, and then you're expanding that access um, with permission sets and permission set groups. Your permission set should represent that of a job to be done. So I always say something like account and contact access because that resonates with a lot of people. So you have a permission set with all of the object permissions, field permissions, user permissions around that job to be done of account and contact access. And you may be thinking, well, wait, does that mean I have delete and view all and modify all and, view all fields in there? And the answer is, I would say yes. And then you think about your permission set groups, that of a larger job to be done, or your personas. And then you take advantage of muting in your permission set group to say this persona or this larger job to be done does not need access to do this specific piece of the job to be done. So that's how I think about that from a permissioning standpoint. Then you have and that's your overall access to objects and fields and app level access and system level access. And then you have what we consider record access. So roles, org-wide defaults, sharing rules, restriction rules all work towards granting access to specific records. So your role hierarchy, which I think if you ask Larry, he'd probably think about this more of like a sharing hierarchy. How are you sharing records up the chain? Based on ownership is one thing to think about. And then you have your overall org-wide defaults, which is saying for that specific object, what is the access for the org? Is it public read write? Is it public read only? Is it private? And then you have your sharing rules to share out records, and the restriction rules to once records are shared to restrict some back based on some specific sets of criteria. That's a very high level 2-minute uh, explanation of user access. We do have, shout out to Dana and Mercedes, who are doc writers. We did a lot of work improving our trailheads as well as all of our help and training documentation. So take a look at that because we have a lot of detailed explanations on these features.
Awesome. Pretty straightforward question from Ratan Kumar. When it comes to Agentforce for setup, can it add fields to the page layouts as well?
That's a great question. So we had hoped to get that in for pilot, and we weren't able to get it in. It's something we are targeting for the beta or GA. Coming soon.
Coming soon. I love it. All right. Okay, I have, interestingly, a question to myself. Will there be future sessions with other features? And we are going to be giving you a survey link, and we really, really, really want to hear from you as to the topics that you think are really important when it comes to what you want to see from True to the Core Deep Dive. Remember, this is community driven. We want to make sure that we are having you have a conversation with our product owners. So this time is for you to coordinate with us. So please keep an eye on the chat for a link to an upcoming survey where you can vote. And I'm trying to see if we have time for one more question. Oh, follow-up question. This is from Carol Invelicine. Does it assign perms to that field if needed when it creates the new field?
I think my internet cut out for a second. Can you repeat the question?
When it's creating new fields, can it assign perms to that field as well? Agentforce for setup.
Can you assign? Oh, when you're creating a field through Agentforce for setup, can you assign?
Yep.
Yes, it will ask you to whether you want to set access for the fields, and you can say yes. And when you do that, you can either create a new permission set or add to an existing permission set.
Got it. Got it. Okay, well, I think that might be a wrap. Okay, let us go into some of our other slides here. All right, everybody. You have been hearing a lot from Cheryl and Elizabeth about how this is an ongoing conversation. So we want you to be able to join in the conversation, continue on communicating with Cheryl, Elizabeth, Laurent, Larry, all those wonderful people out there. So please join the Salesforce Admins Trailblazer community. We have a link here for you and also a QR code. And then once again, yes, we want you to vote on future episode topics and share your feedback with us. First of all, we want to know how you felt we did today, changes to the format that you might recommend. What we did right today would be nice too. So I have a link there to the survey and also our QR code. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to Cheryl and Elizabeth for coming on camera today and sharing such great wisdom and communicating with our audience. I also want to give a big shout out to Laurent and Larry, who I'm sure have been typing furiously for about the last 45 to 48 minutes. Also to the team from True to the Core, Deep Dive, Brittany, Leanne, all y'all for helping make this thing happen. And I believe that concludes our show. Thank you for watching, everybody, and we will see you next time.
Yes, thank you so much for all of the questions.